So I'm going to be blunt. You've been lied to about how life and reality works. You were taught to fight the world, to hustle and grind, and to try and fix everything that was around you in order to succeed. But what if the life you are living right now, the reality that you see here, isn't life at all? In fact, it is merely a reflection. Not a random set of circumstances, not a punishment, not luck, but a mirror. A reflection. You see, everything you're experiencing, your relationships, your bank account, your struggles, your successes, is showing you. The crazy part? The people in power, the so-called elites, they were taught these things at a very young age. When they were children. They were shown this through example even when they were babies, and then learned it more systematically as they got older. They were taught how to work with this mirror, not fight it. Most people spend their lives trying to fix the reflection, not realizing that it's their internal state, their inner world, their beliefs, their frequency, and their perception that's shaping what they see. And so they hustle, they grind, they force against life, all while trying to change a world that is simply reflecting back to them who they are being. This is not mere theory. This is a practical principle of the universe that provides real change in your life if you follow these teachings. Now, for myself, it helped me go from a life or reflection of being broke, depressed, with seemingly nothing to look forward to one where I now have traveled to so many beautiful places, drew in the woman of my dreams, experienced so much in just a few short years, where my bank account has never been larger, and has also expanded through doing something that I love, where it doesn't even really feel like work. Not only that, but on a daily basis, I have time and schedule freedom to do what I want when I want. I thoroughly enjoy my day-to-day. I learned that a new future is always available, so it doesn't matter where you're starting when you go to apply this. The mirror principle, when applied consciously, will absolutely transform your life no matter where you are now. Now, in this video, I'm going to break down exactly what the mirror principle is, why it's one of the most powerful universal laws you've never been taught, and how to start using it consciously to create transformation from the inside out. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So let's dive in. Now, the mirror principle is one of the most influential universal principles that's operating in your life. And if we were to say it very simply in a nutshell, it would be that the outer world follows the inner world. That is something I would definitely write down or keep in mind. Now, we're going to explain this even further. What do I mean when I say the outer world? And what do I mean when I say the inner world? So the outer world is, as you expect, it is your physical existence. It is the reflection we were talking about in the intro. All of these physical things that you perceive with your five senses that create this physical experience for you. So there is a part of you that is absolutely operating from a physical perspective. So when you think outer world, it's the physical world and your physical existence, everything contained within that. The inner world, however, is basically everything else and is made up of different parts. You see, the physical is one part of yourself, and it's the part a lot of people get stuck at because they believe you're just physical, or we are just physical. But there's also the inner world part of yourself, which is made up of what we can call the mental and the spiritual part of yourself. Now, the mental is exactly as you would imagine. It is your imaginings. It is your thoughts. It is your visualizations. Anything kind of in that realm, it falls into the mental part of yourself. You have that part of yourself. It's not physical. You're having thoughts. You're able to daydream and visualize and imagine and these kinds of things. So that's one part of yourself as well that has to do with the inner world. It's not out there in the physical, at least not yet. It leads to what comes out in the physical, but for the most part, it's in that inner space. And the other part is the spiritual. And this part you can think of as your connection to everything, to your connection to something larger and more powerful, your connection to the all, infinite intelligence, God, source, whatever you want to call it. It's like your direct line to that. And you can also think of this as your emotional self. So when we say emotion, we mean energy in motion, meaning what you're feeling is activating this plane of your existence. So those emotions, those feelings, etc., are in that inner world space as well. You don't see them out here, but you feel them within. They are an inner world game. So you have the physical world, which is outer, and then the inner world, which is mental and spiritual. Now, why is it that the outer world follows the inner world, meaning the outer world comes from and is produced, is birthed from the inner world? Why is it that these two inner planes of existence, and again, this is a general kind of guide, these three parts, it's more nuanced than that, but this gives us something to work with, a framework that makes it a lot easier to think about. So why is it that the physical, the outer world, follows these two inner ones that we're calling the mental and spiritual? Well, one thing that really helps with this understanding is to recognize what our physical world is really made up of. And so all of us were taught that atoms are the building blocks of the physical world. You know, most of us learned that in school or from whoever else. But would it surprise you to learn that an atom, if you were to look at it deeply, is actually less physical, much less physical than you've been led to believe, because this is what's making up everything you see around here and in the room you're in right now, or the phone or computer you're watching this. It's made up and consists of atoms. That's what it's made up of to build whatever the physical thing is. But what if I was to tell you, and this is scientifically confirmed, that the atom itself is made up of 99.999999% empty space or energy, and 0.00001% physical matter reality. What this means is the very thing that is the building block, the foundation of what we call the physical, is in and of itself non-physical. There's even a famous scientist, I'll put the quote up on the screen, that basically says everything that is physical in our lives is made up of things that cannot be regarded as physical. I'm forgetting if it's Heisenberg or Niels Bohr or someone similar, but I'll put up the quote and the actual scientist it comes from. And this is stuff that also people like Werner Heisenberg would say, Max Planck, Nikola Tesla we know as well, that ultimately there really isn't a physical, just something that appears physical, made of things that can't actually be regarded as physical. I believe it was Max Planck who said that everything is fundamentally consciousness and that physical matter is derivative of consciousness, meaning it comes from consciousness. And that's the same thing when we're talking about empty space and energy. So why does the outer world follow the inner? Because the inner world is what's connected to that 99.9+%. That is the empty space and energy. That is what creates the physical, the outpicturing, the experience, the reflection. We'll go over a little bit more in a second how this works, but keep in mind, the outer world, your physical world, follows the inner. And that the atom, or the thing that is the building block of the things we call physical, is made up of 99.9+% empty space and energy. And a quote I always love that just kind of gives a vivid picture of this is, if you were to remove all of the empty space and energy from everyone on the planet, so every person, that's like 8 billion people, whatever the number is, and you removed all of the empty space and energy and just had that physical matter left, you would only have enough physical stuff to fit within a tiny sugar cube. That is how physical we actually are. Basically not at all. So let's go over a little more deeply how the mirror principle works using this three-part being structure that we are going over here. So this is what we can also call advanced cause and effect. You see, a lot of people understand cause and effect on the physical plane, and it does exist on the physical plane. It actually exists on all planes of existence, but it exists in the physical. If you push something, you have that cause, there's an effect where it's going to move in that direction. There's many different ways we could demonstrate cause and effect. But did you know cause and effect also works on the higher planes of existence? And so how this works when it comes to the higher planes, so the mental and spiritual, is that the causes you activate mentally and spiritually create effects in the physical. Remember, the outer follows the inner. So what you do in the inner is what's going to give the instructions to the physical on what's supposed to show up there. Meaning if I dwell in certain thoughts in the mental, or visualize certain things, or see certain things in my imaging, and then I feel corresponding thoughts, ones that are, let's say, higher feelings, let's say more joyful, peaceful, gratitude, abundance thoughts, there is going to be a corresponding effect that happens in the physical because the outer follows the inner. This is why so many people struggle. This is why the reflection that most people see, what we're talking about then is their physical world. This is why so many people's physical world is nowhere near where they want it to be. And it's kind of a struggle and it feels miserable. Why? Because most people, when it comes to their inner world, have a garden that is overrun with weeds. They are thinking negatively most of the time. They're in lower conscious emotions like guilt and shame and fear and apathy and pride and anger and similar ones. And so because that's where they're feeling, So that's activating the spirit part, which also disconnects them from that higher power. You can't be disconnected fully, but it kind of constricts we'll call it like the channel for where you gain that energy, right? The more you raise your emotion, the more that channel opens up and you can connect to this much easier, by the way. But they're in these emotions. So that's what's happening on the spirit. You'll have corresponding thoughts because of the principle of correspondence, as above, so below. So if you feel a certain way, you'll notice that you think in a way that's congruent to that and usually act in a way that's congruent to that. But if you're doing that on those two planes of existence, then it's going to create an effect that's aligned to what you're doing there in your physical. And so that's why so many people don't like the job they're in or the relationship they're in, don't like where their health is, don't like their just day-to-day existence. Because in the inner world, the mental and the spiritual, they're in a very negative place. And because they're dwelling in that, because they're presenting that to the mirror, the reflection is going to be of the same. The reflection in the mirror is not going to be different than your internal state. You will never find someone who has, for at least a decent period of time, been thinking happy thoughts, thinking great things, feeling amazing, and then has this terrible reflection. No, they'll have something that matches it. And you'll never find someone who's thinking negatively all the time, who's feeling negatively all the time, we consider negative, and then has this beautiful outer world experience. You'll never find this because it doesn't match up, and it doesn't match up to the laws of the universe. It just can't happen due to the law of balance, due to the mirror principle, and so on. You will always get that accurate reflection based on how you're being inwardly. You will always get an outer world that reflects your inner world. This is why you don't get what you want, you get who you are. This is something you may have heard in the space. You don't get what you want, right? Kind of those desires. You get who you are. And who you are is what you're doing in that inner world. These are your thoughts. These are your visualizations, which become your beliefs, which become your convictions, which becomes your worldview, right? And that's going to drive the way you're thinking, your energy. What energy are you connecting to in this very moment? What are you being? Are you being someone who's abundant? Are you being someone who is loving? Are you being someone who is wise and connecting to that place? That is who you are. And the more you are staying and dwelling upon those frequencies, we'll call them, that energy, right? Again, the energy that's making up all of this, the more that's going to start showing up in your physical. Also keep in mind that when you cultivate this inner world in that way, it is going to pull you or drive you to take certain physical actions, right? It's not just you're doing everything in the inner. What the inner does is it starts moving things in the background and starts presenting you with opportunities. And you're going to start moving more in correspondence to what you're doing in the inner. And so it'll line up certain people, certain opportunities, certain events, certain other things that you would have never been able to construct if you just did it physically, right? But when these line up and you take the corresponding action, that's when things start to change. So now one thing you may be wondering is, why does it take so long then? Why does it seem if I go down this route, something's not changing or my outer world doesn't start to shift? This is a very crucial point, and it's a part where a lot of people get tripped up and then they lose faith in this process, or they just keep being negative and they keep going down back to the life of quiet desperation and what they were doing before. So it's important we cover this. So to do this, we need to go over what's known in Hermetic wisdom as the principle of polarity. Now, like I mentioned, everything is basically energy. Again, even the physical stuff and what the atom is made up of is 99.9+% all the way through energy and empty space. So it is still energy at its core. And again, if we bring up that quote, I believe from Max Planck, about consciousness being fundamental and physical being derivative from that, it means it's coming from that. It's not something separate. It's not something different. Physical matter is not something different from energy. In fact, it is of a like kind, just at a different rate of vibration. And this is where polarity comes into view. And what you can imagine is we have this pole, and this is like everything in existence, right? Exists somewhere on this pole. At the top of the pole, you have spirit, or energy, in like its purest, most fundamental form. And at the bottom, you have the grossest form of matter. And in between is everything else. So the mental world would be higher, more towards the energy part, because it kind of shows up more in that way. And then there's different kind of forms of matter, the like liquids would be a little higher up, et cetera, et cetera. But understand that there are billions and billions, probably infinite modes of vibration, all vibrating at different frequencies, at different rates, that determine how it shows up. But understand that all of this is made up of a like kind. It's consciousness, it's energy, or whatever other term you want to apply to it. Meaning that even as you go further down the pole to the grossest form of matter, it is still the same thing as whatever is at the highest end of the pole. It's of a like kind, but just at a different rate of vibration. And so this is why the physical takes time to show up in your life. It is a denser, slower rate of vibration, meaning there needs to be concentrated particle flow or enough energy in that direction for it to start showing up in what we call the physical, meaning you have to dwell in a certain energy and in that inner realm and certain thoughts before it starts showing up in the physical. There is a lag time between what's in the inner world showing up in the physical. One of my favorite ways to think about this is recognizing that your physical world is what's called an energetic history. What does that mean, that your physical world is an energetic history? It is the history of whatever energy you have been dwelling in leading up to now. Over these last weeks and months, what energy have you been in most of the time? What have you been thinking most of the time? Your physical world will reflect that and will be an accumulation of that. And so one of our jobs is actually to create a new history. But you don't resist a history, right? So if you see what's in your physical and then start trying to change it, you're trying to change a history. So instead, try to create a new history, a new energetic history by, again, going to the inner world first, because that's what the outer world follows. One way that we do this is we have what's called more faith in the vision than your current physical circumstances. You see, again, your current physical circumstances, if you keep looking at them or complaining about them, what are you being in that moment? And again, you get who you are, not what you want. So who are you being when you're complaining about your current physical circumstances? What thoughts are you having? What emotions are you entertaining? Are you connecting more to the divine or source or God or whatever else when you're doing that? Or are you kind of cutting yourself off, right? So if you have more faith in the vision of what it is you want to turn up and you feel good about that and you're thinking about it most of the time, then that's what's going to start churning up. You have to almost turn off the sense data or ignore the sense data. So your five senses are trying to tell you everything is this situation, but recognize it's just a history. The only reason it is this situation is because of what you were doing before that created this accumulation or buildup or concentrated particle flow of energy that then allowed these physical things to show up, which means, like I said in the intro, a new future is available and it becomes a reality when you start shifting your focus to different things in the inner world. That's another one I'd write down if you're taking notes or you have something where you can do this, to have more faith in the vision than the current physical circumstances, because as you go to this, you might get triggered, you might get pulled, but if you can bring yourself back to that vision quicker each time, this is going to begin to work a lot faster. You see, a lot of times why this doesn't work for people is they are not giving faith to the vision, right, over their physical circumstances, or they don't do it long enough, right? They might do it for a week or a little bit, or they might think they're doing it, but what they're really doing is, oh, positive, then right back to negative, and they're just kind of jumping back and forth. The majority of the time, they're still thinking negatively or feeling negatively. They're still creating a reflection that is based on that negativity that they've been dwelling on. You have to tip the scales at least 51% of the time, most of the time, in order to get this to work. But the great thing about that is it need not take long if you're diligent and you commit to this process. But if you go backwards, you never get the opportunity for this to show up. And understand, if you stop doing it, it's not like, oh, you have this energy here and it's here forever whenever you want to pick it back up. That's not how it works. That energy that was building then starts to dissipate because you're now no longer giving it attention and it starts to fade, right? It starts to go away. And maybe a little bit will be remaining to kind of help you spark it in the future, but it starts to go away, right? But the more we focus on this, the more that energy builds to such a point where it becomes your new lifestyle, where you start to, again, be it. It becomes easier. You start developing patterns with this and habits in the same way a lot of people do for the negative, you'll be able to do for these positives. One analogy I really like, which I believe comes from reality transurfing, I think, is the smiling in the mirror analogy. And this can really paint a picture of how this works. Now, with this process, it takes a while, if you're smiling in the mirror, for the reflection to smile back at you. Again, the mirror is only reflecting back the energetic history and what you've been doing up to this point. So a lot of people go up to the mirror, they smile a few times, and they get frustrated that the mirror is not smiling back. It's kind of giving them this stonewall expression, and they're like, why isn't it smiling back? I'm smiling in the mirror. Why isn't the reflection immediately changing to reflect that? And that's because of all of what you've been doing in the past, the energetic history, which has created whatever this stonewall figure is or the reflection that maybe you're not too happy with. But if you keep smiling in the mirror and you don't keep changing your expression yourself back to the Stonewall one, or, where you're scowling or whatever else, you'll notice if you keep dwelling in that smile, and even if you fall out of it, sometimes you get yourself back to it quickly, you'll start noticing that this reflection kind of ends of the mouth start to curl upwards. And slowly but surely, this smile starts to appear on the reflection as well. And you stay with it, and suddenly it has the same smile that you have been presenting in the mirror, because you've been dwelling upon those higher states, those higher thoughts in the inner world, and that outer world, which is represented by the reflection here, starts to change to match that if you stay there long enough. What most people do is one of two things. Again, they give up way too quickly because the reflection is not immediately smiling back. It's like going to the gym and going twice in 1 week and not being ripped at that point or losing the amount of weight you wanted, so giving up. But it takes more time. You have to go consistently. You have to go more often. Or being upset you don't have a six-pack or whatever after a couple workouts. You have to keep going. But if you do and you follow the process long enough, it'll start showing up. It's the same in this case. So that's the first kind of tripping point for most people. They just don't do it long enough, right? They just don't smile in the mirror or dwell on those emotions and those thoughts in the inner realm long enough, right? They're not giving the seed that they've planted enough time to germinate, and they're not giving it enough attention to grow. The second thing people will do is they will get frustrated by the slowness that they consider the results to be, so they'll start trying to draw on the mirror a smiley face. They'll try and paint a smiley face, and this is kind of when it has a delusional quality, right? Like kind of pretending that things are going well or whatever else, but your inner world's kind of in this bad place. This is the kind of person who kind of acts as jolly and everything else. It's kind of a spiritual bypassy kind of way of going about it, but their inner world is still a mess, but they're trying to make it look like it's not. Again, you can paint a smile on the image or the reflection, but behind that painting, again, there's still the stone-walled expression. There's still the scowl. Again, this is the physical trying to control the physical, right? I don't want to see this, so I'm just going to paint a smile on the image rather than changing the inner world, or again, smiling at the reflection myself. And so by continually smiling at the reflection, which again, we're comparing to in the inner world, changing your state, being, feeling, and thinking in that more positive direction, that is what's going to allow for a new energetic history, or for that reflection now to be more of what you want it to be. Again, you must be different in order for new things to show up in your life. You can't just want something, you have to be it. And you become different by focusing on what you are doing in the inner and allowing it to guide you to how to move in the outer. So let's go over some things that can help you to do this. To paint a picture of how you're going to do this, we're going to go over what's called the player versus the character analogy. And I want you to imagine that it's like a video game, right? You have this character that's in the game, and this character that's in the game is completely immersed in the game. They're immersed in their world or whatever game world they're in. It's like Mario being in the Mario game. He doesn't understand that he's in the game. This is very real to him. Or Sims character in the Sims game, they don't understand they're in a video game. They believe that what they're going through and what they're doing is very real. That is their reality. Then you have the player, the one who is behind the screen and understands that it's a game. And this player can make choices, can help the character bring certain things into the game, upgrading the game, and everything else. Now, the player in this analogy is connected to the inner world, that 99.9+% of everything that's outside of the game. It knows that it's a game, it has higher perspectives, and knows what to bring into the game to improve the performance or the experience in the game. The character in this represents the physical self. Again, that 0.00001% of what's actually going on in reality. Now, if you only see yourself as a character and never connect as the player, then of course you're fully immersed in the physical experience. But again, if you're doing that, you're always fighting against a history, an energetic history. You're trying to change things from that physical perspective rather than going into the inner world, which is creating everything in this game for you. When you're only identifying as the character, it's very easy to get hooked into the game and get swung around by the game and feel like a victim. Again, the player knows the game. It can help program things into the game, and it's just coming from that higher perspective. Again, it's connected to that inner world place and actually knows what to do. Again, if we think of like the Mario analogy, it's kind of like Mario being in the game but having no idea what to do. He doesn't know why these turtles are coming at him. He doesn't know that he can jump against blocks and get coins and power-ups and everything else as the character. He's just seeing all this and having no clue on what to do. But when we connect to the player knows how to move in the game. The player knows to jump on the turtles and the Goombas or whatever else they are, to get the fire flower and the upgrades and whatever, and how to move up levels in the game. And so the more we connect to the player and can kind kind of see the game that we're playing in and how to operate from it, the better we're going to do. So one of our true goals when it comes to this, to making this work, is to connect to the player more than the character. And to understand that if we can move around even as the character and keep reconnecting to that inner world place, even as we're going through the game, and connect to that player, the better our experience in the game is going to be. Because again, certain things can then start to show up that you would never have been able to do if you were just the character. You're going to know now how to access the thoughts and the emotions and everything else you're going to need to change the game for you. Ultimately, the player is going to be able to choose more of how the character shows up and which character shows up. Again, who you are being. And we don't get what we want, we get who we are. Now, some of the ways in which you can connect to the player more often, we're going to give you some of the methods. Now, the first one is doing what we can consider the inner work or the inner size. Now, one you've all heard of is called meditation. Everyone's heard of this one, and this is amazing, again, at cultivating that inner world, both in the spirit and the mental part of it. Meditation helps you tune into the player. Again, it helps you create this disconnect from the physical. When you're truly deep in meditation, you actually forget about the physical world, your physical body, and you're able to go past those senses into this inner realm, into the player. This also helps to clear out gunk, so if you have a lot of thoughts or feelings that are kind of troubling you, it's also good at releasing these feelings and these thoughts that might be sabotaging you. There's many meditation techniques that directly go for this, but even passive meditation can be very useful in clearing out things that are sabotaging you. This is also going to improve your thoughts and emotions. It's going to allow you to be more grounded and create the space to start responding to what comes up for you rather than reacting. Think of it like you're in the game and you keep reacting to everything that comes up rather than taking a step back and making choices. When you do meditation consistently, it gets easier to think about what you want to think about and to kind of throw out the rest or ignore thoughts that come in that don't serve you. It gets easier to feel what it is you want to feel and to transmute or again ignore feelings that aren't going to serve you. And ultimately it connects you to spirit, that spiritual realm. Again, that channel I talked about opening up more will open up further and further and further, which allows you to access more and more information that you wouldn't be able to access otherwise, the more that you're doing things like meditation. The next one is visualization, which is similar to meditation, but in visualization, you're usually taking a more active approach because you're going to choose what imaging you're going to see. You're actually participating a little bit more. Now, this is great because you're able to choose the future that you want. When you're visualizing, you're able to essentially say what scenes in the game or what results in the game do I want to have come through? And then you'll feel what it feels like to actually have that happen in your life. And so visualizing is incredibly powerful. It's one we give specific techniques to our clients to help this process, because when you're visualizing properly and you're doing it consistently and you're cultivating that image and that scene in the inner world, again, the outer world follows the inner world and starts moving things to bring that about for you. This also helps you to focus your thoughts throughout the day on what it is you want because you have a clear picture on what that is now. And one quote to keep in mind is you get what you think about most of the time. And so by constantly visualizing and making this a ritual or a practice, you will have this image in your head of what it is you're actually going for, which will help you tune into it also just throughout your day. And you're going to want to do that if you want to change your physical life or just your life in general. This also helps the universe now know what it is you're looking to bring about so it can start helping you to do so. And again, as long as this is coming from a feeling good place and this is coming from a genuine place, it absolutely will help you in accomplishing or bringing about whatever that thing is the more you focus on it. So those are two practices I recommend. If you haven't been doing, do them. It's not enough to know about these practices. That's the same as saying, like, knowing what a treadmill is but never stepping on the treadmill and actually going for a run. Well, guess what? You're not going to get any benefit until you hop on the treadmill. Again, this is the inner size. In the same way you can't put muscles on if you don't go to the gym and actually lift the weights and do the thing, you cannot grow your inner muscles and your ability to do these things unless you're doing the inner size. Meditation, visualization are two of the most powerful ones you could be doing consistently. So if you're not getting your inner workouts in, you can expect very little change in your life. However, it's not only having these practices that, kind of like you sit down, you set a timer and you do a practice. You're also going to want to do things throughout your day, moment to moment. Because let's say you meditate for 30 minutes and you visualize for 30 minutes each day. That's fantastic. That's an hour of you doing the inner size. That's a beautiful thing. But what if then you go out into your day-to-day and you're getting hooked all the time, you're getting triggered, your thoughts are in this weird place, you're feeling bad all the time, all of these different things? Well, you're doing that the majority of the time then. Now, visualization and meditation helps with this, like I mentioned, but we want to do things moment to moment the best we can, or have reminders that allow us to, more often than not, again, think where we want to think and feel what we want to feel. And keep in mind that you are what's called infinite action. You are always dwelling on something in the inner world of thought and of feeling. And so there's no turning this off. There's no getting away from this. And again, you're going to get what you think and feel about most of the time. So understand you're always sending out that signal and you're always connecting to something. So why not train yourself to connect to the things you want to connect to, which will create what you want in your life, rather than the things you don't want to connect to that are creating many of the things you don't want in your life. So the first thing is just to become aware when this happens and to wake up and breathe. And what this means is almost, you can do this even physically, take a step back. And again, if you're in the mode of the character, snap out of it and tune back into the player. If you're getting hooked into the game, you're getting reactive, instead learn to respond. And an easy way to do this is just to snap yourself out of it, become aware that you were hooked, which is not a bad thing, it happens, it's not a problem, and then take some deep breaths, and then make a conscious choice of what you want to do next. What do you want to focus on? What are you doing? Ask these questions to get you refocused. Go back to thinking about, again, that image that you've created through visualization. Go back to thinking about the things you want in your life and feeling good about them. But the more you can wake yourself up during the day and do this, the easier this is going to get. Now, in the beginning, you might need to do this dozens of times throughout your day. Let me tell you something, it's worth it because you truly, truly, truly get what you think about and feel about most of the time. And so it is not something that goes unnoticed. It is not something that doesn't produce results. If you wake yourself up constantly throughout the day, you will need to do it less as you keep getting better at this. And you might only need to do it a few times a day because you'll just be doing it automatically. And so wake yourself up. Take a step back, and I'm really saying that mentally, but you can even do it physically if that helps trigger you to do this, and just take some deep breaths or do whatever else to anchor yourself and then make a new choice. Go, is this really what I want to be thinking about right now? No? Okay, what do I want to be thinking about? What do I want to be doing right now? What would benefit me? What would move me closer to my vision? What would help me anchor myself back into my vision? Who do I want to show up as in this moment? The next one is called appreciation bursts throughout the day. And all this means is when you're not doing anything or you perceive yourself as not doing anything and you feel like you're going into autopilot, start becoming appreciative and thankful for things. I will just start saying thank you to all the things I find around me, all the things that are happening in my life, for my partner, for my child, for my channel, for my business partner, for my home, for the things in my home, just everything around me. I'll start becoming thankful for and genuinely being thankful for. When you are doing this, you are sending out an energy of appreciation. And what you appreciate appreciates. The more you're in an appreciation, grateful type of energy, the more you will find coming into your life that for you to appreciate, meaning good things are going to start coming in. This is a great practice, and again, you can't overdo this. There is no over appreciating something. There is no giving too much gratitude. And so by creating a habit of appreciating throughout the day. Again, you could do this a dozen times in a day and it's only going to benefit you. Again, in those moments where you might have gone into autopilot and you might be thinking negatively, you can snap yourself out of it and just do an appreciation burst. I have times when I'll drive to the gym and I will do this. I'll just start getting grateful and appreciative until I've arrived at the gym. And on the way back, I'll do the same thing. And I'll find in these moments where I'm kind of usually maybe just thinking or whatever else it is, go into appreciation. And it's massively beneficial. It taps you back into that player part and kind of takes you out of the character. The next one is movement. And the reason I want to give this one is because a lot of people are not moving their bodies in this physical thing, this vehicle that they have that houses the inner stuff, by the way. And because of that, it's having a corresponding effect in the inner world. Remember the principle of correspondence, as above, so below. So if you're stagnant physically, you're going to be stagnant emotionally and thoughtfully as well. A lot of times when you shift your thoughts and feelings, you'll also notice that you want to do certain things physically. You might want to move, you might want to stretch, you might want to, engage in certain movements. And so one thing I found very helpful, especially if I'm sitting down, let's say I'm researching a video, let's say I'm doing some other work, I'm working with a client, whatever it is, and I'm at my desk, One of the things I like to do right after that is I have a vibration plate. I like to get on that. I go outside and I get some sun, do some qigong or some stretching. Sometimes I have a little treadmill, like a walking pad that I'll go in to get some movement in. If I haven't worked out, I might go work out. I have a bunch of other little things I can do, animal movements, in order to get movement going. This does so much not only for your physical body, but while you're looking after that, it also does so much for your inner world because of the principle of correspondence. As above, so below. It works the other way around as well. So if you start thinking more positively, you'll notice you start feeling more positively, and you'll notice that your physical body starts responding to that too. Maybe through a smile, maybe your shoulders go back, you're standing up straighter, right? So all of these play into each other. They're all in what's called correspondence. And I found movement, just physically getting up and doing something, and just appreciating my body through doing that helps my thoughts and helps my feelings. Again, if you create stagnation on one plane, it's going to filter into another. One great example of this, if you've ever been really messy and also felt crazy in your head, like you're overthinking and it's very cluttered there, yeah, as above, so below. As within, so without. One thing I've always found helpful is if I'm feeling a little weird internally and kind of cluttered, I'll look at my space and go, oh, my physical space is also cluttered. I'll clean it up and I'll notice, oh, my inner space feels a lot more free and uncluttered as well. So always remember, as within, so without, and as without, so within. They are in correspondence and play off of each other. Now, one of the most important tools to get this to work for yourself is what's called identity shifting. Like I mentioned before, you don't get what you want, you get who you are. And so learning intentional identity shifting tools and practices can help you fast track this so that you are utilizing the mirror principle in the quickest way possible. Again, I've given you a lot of stuff already that are going to help with this. They're going to help shift your identity. But in this video, I go over a full kind of exercise and plan to help you shift your identity quickly. Again, this is another thing that people in prominent societies, so-called elites, they're aware of and learned from a young age, but you can catch up by learning how to do it here. So I'll see you over there.